Welcome to Red Zone Extra Facebook Live. We are a reduced crew today. We are Samless today. We are utterly without Sam. But what we lack in attendance, we compensate for in quality with Herbie Teope, Vahe Gregorian, and myself, Blair Kirchhoff. We are at Big O Tires in Lee Summit. Always look above the door for the address, 1125 Southwest Oldham Parkway. You can see it from 50 Highway or Highway 50. I never know which, if it's Highway 50 or 50 Highway, but it's 50.
Just the fact it's a topic in this area and no place else in the country that I know of, except maybe in Carolina or something. I've never, ever heard of the number being before the highway in any other place but here.
But you can see it from the highway, which is one of the few Big O Tires that we've been to this year. We can see the shop from the highway. If you've driven past the Hardys, you've gone too far. And a subject for another day is the Hardys Carl's Jr. line of delineation. We're gonna have to get into that sometime. But today it's Chiefs. The Chiefs are on a bye week, an open week, an off week, whatever you want to call it. But we are not. We are not. We're here to talk Chiefs. Again, I said we're in beautiful Lee Summit, and I always like to recognize some of the famous folks of Lee Summit, of the town we're in, and that's Lee Summit. Drew Lock is a Lee Summit resident. Shaquille Harrison, basketball player. Evan Bain from Lee Summit. So many Lee Summit. Michael Dixon from old Mizzou basketball player.
Andy Locke.
Andy Locke, the
chef
old Mizzou
extraordinaire, businessman, and father of Drew Lock.
Yeah, very much.
You're missing the most important person, though. Our own Sam McDowell lives about 5-6 minutes from here.
He does, and he was really looking forward to a home game today. But he and Sam Mellinger are on assignment and not with us today. So again, while the Chiefs are off, the Sams are scattered to different parts of the country working on stories, and we three are here to talk Chiefs. Before we spin it forward, I wanted to ask you guys a little bit more about the Mexico City experience, where the Chiefs beat the Chargers 24-17 on Monday Night Football, the team's only Monday Night Football game of the year. And what a scene that was. What an experience it must have been. First of all, you didn't have to change time zones, but it was a long way getting down there. Long day traveling, getting back, I suspect. What were your enduring impressions of Mexico City? Herbie, start with you.
I think my enduring experience was the electricity. You cannot deny the electricity in Mexico City. The folks down there in Mexico City love the National Football League, and it was quite clear going to the stadium where you see so many different jerseys from various teams, players, Tom Brady, Antonio
Dan
Brown,
Marino.
Dan Marino, Roger Staubach. We saw a Roger Staubach jersey, a lot of Cowboys fans down there, Raiders fans, and then the amount of Chiefs fans. I mean, I saw a number 18 Sammy Parker jersey out there.
Wow.
Old Joe Montana jerseys, Matt Castle jerseys. He was well represented, Jamal Charles, and the list just goes on and on. But I really enjoyed the electricity of it, and you really captured that electricity during the national anthem for both countries. I know Mellinger pointed out that he got chills, and he's absolutely correct. It was just a chilling experience. It was an enjoyable experience, and it wouldn't surprise me to see more games in Mexico City as the years progressed, because the NFL found something down there.
It did, and look, it was really stirring, especially, I mean, all four of us were captivated by a lot of things, but especially during both anthems. I mean, that was when they brought both flags out. And I couldn't resist taking a little video of it. Just that it was exhilarating, and it really spoke to, I think, the way Mexico embraces the game. Sam McDowell last week, as we were getting ready for it, in the run-up, did a story talking to some NFL officials, and they've identified, I guess, 22 million people who identify themselves anyway as NFL fans in Mexico, which coincidentally, and really is coincidentally, is about the population of Mexico City. So there seems to be a hunger for it, and it was kind of cool, as you pointed out, that it was an NFL hunger, as well as well-represented Chargers fans, or Cargadores, as we call them there, versus the Jefes, which I kind of love saying. A thing, though, that there'll be a lot of logistics if this is in the NFL future to be conquered. Many things, but start with the most simple thing that we observed, which is thousands of troops required to pull this game off. I mean, we went through hundreds just right there in the entryway with the media bus coming in, all with machine guns. 3 gates to let the media bus in. It tanks, I mean, military vehicles everywhere. Way different than you might have seen at an NFL game. There's what is essentially a moat within the stadium. There's no water in it, but it would be a moat, around the field. You didn't see this on TV, but police and every 10 feet down there. So that's just one of the things, right? But it's the one that's visceral and something on my mind as we come away from that experience.
Yeah, security was definitely tight, and I would say it reminded me a lot of the Super Bowl. Because whenever there's a Super Bowl, there's obviously a heavy police presence, and that's what you had down there. Security was definitely top notch.
Although let me share this real quick. So Sam McDowell and I made our way down to the field before the game, and I guess our credential didn't allow us down on the field, but a really nice, thoughtful security guard led us down, and we got to just see some up close and personal stuff with Patrick Mahomes and some video with that, and Mahomes greeting Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner. As we made our way back, it was a little bit of a labyrinth, and we kept being given approval to go through the next place, and hold up our press pass to the press box, and next thing you know, we're being ushered to the Chargers locker room, and there's no guard, and we're right here. I mean, I'm as close as the door as I am to you, Blair, and
wow.
And we thought we might as well turn around and not go in the Chargers locker room
at that point. Right. Well, a couple of things we did see on TV that you wouldn't normally see. The condition of the field was the reason why the Chiefs didn't play there in 2018. So that was supposed to be all taken care of. But we saw a ton of divots on the field. And look, there was no Shakira concert, in advance as there was last year. There was 2 weeks before the previous soccer game was played in that stadium. But still, the field itself seemed to be an issue, at least in terms of cutting quickly and spikes creating divots. And then the other thing was just the altitude, the 7,200-foot altitude. Chiefs defensive linemen on that last series were really gasping for air. Frank Clark and those guys, Chris Jones, just getting back to the line of scrimmage as the Chargers were in their hurry-up mode. So this was the 4th game played, the NFL's played in Mexico City, the 4th regular season game. It was the 2nd one on Monday Night Football, and all the reviews have been very positive. But I just think if this is going to be an annual event and it's going to be part of the 17th game, which that's what we're talking about next year, right? A 17th regular season game that would be played on a neutral site, probably outside the U.S. These are things that Mexico City still has to, at least the field, they've got to get that right. And teams, I don't know if the Chargers benefited from training in altitude as they did at Air Force Academy last week. But I know the Chiefs were gassed at the end of that game.
They were, and they spoke about it. You spoke to a few people about it. I did. I'll go to the field real quick. I think the Chiefs, sort of led by Andy Reid, and just wanted to be gracious guests. And so you heard in the public comments after the game, mostly, well, we play in snow and ice, and some things are hard, and you just deal with the conditions. And that's very true. But sort of behind the scenes, a couple guys let on that it was really not what an NFL field should be. And that is something to be addressed if this is going to be an ongoing thing. And it makes me think about, well, if you're going to add other countries to this, I mean, right now we've really just been talking about London and Mexico City.
Right.
But other places and what their challenges are going to be to get up to speed before you're going to be making this more global.
Yeah, the field, obviously, the stadium, I think, is like 80 years old. So there's a lot of things that you need to do to modernize it. An elevator would be nice. But, to your point about the altitude, I don't know about you, Vahe. I like to think that I'm in pretty good shape, but going up the ramp from the bottom all the way up to where the press box was, you started feeling it. And I know some of the players were saying, yeah, they felt it as well. You can't help but feel when you're 7,200,000 plus feet above sea level. Whether that affected the Chiefs remains, none of them will come on record and say, yeah, we were gassed, but that's a consideration.
This does make me wonder, and we got into it a little bit the morning after. What I don't know, and I wish I get why Andy doesn't want to elaborate too much on this, Andy Reid, but they were kind of cut and dried and fairly certain that there were two, three, four different ways to handle getting ready for altitude, and that they chose to stay here instead of going to Air Force Academy, I guess.
That's
where the Chargers went. Andy didn't give us much about the reasoning other than we decided to do this. And what I don't know is how much, they're just thinking about, okay, X amount of hours, let's keep everything the same. I just would have loved to hear a little more insight about why they think this was the way. Actually, I'd be interested to know too, we won't have a chance to talk to them till next week, but in hindsight, would they have done it differently? And
right.
I don't know that they'll answer that right now.
What we do know about Andy Reid, having covered him now for several years, is he is such a creature of habit when it comes to game prep and travel. They seem to travel. They had to make an exception this week to travel earlier in the day before, which was Sunday. They went Sunday morning instead of. But typically on a Sunday game on the road, they leave in the late afternoon on Saturday, and no matter if it's East Coast, West Coast, Midwest. And he just wants his routine. And I think his idea was just to keep the team in the routine for the week. And taking the Colorado Springs or wherever was leaving that routine. I remember, in 2015, when they played in London, the Lions went a week early.
Correct.
They went a week early to prepare for the time zone change. And I think, I think the Chiefs left on a Thursday, like 3 or 4 days after the Lions did. The Chiefs won that game 45-10. I mean, so they obviously had the better team, and at least routine versus acclimating to the environment, routine won, at least in both of those games.
And in the end, regardless of anything else, that'll probably still be their takeaway. Well, maybe we would have benefited from going to altitude, but we won doing it our way. Let's do that again.
He did make one concession, though, as far as preparation, because you made a very good point. Andy Reid is a creature of habit. He loves paying attention to the details. But that first practice they had on a Wednesday, typically that's in full pads. They didn't have their helmets. They didn't have their pads on. So they began the week of practice with a very light day. And I thought that was kind of interesting that he took that approach.
But speaking of concessions, by the way, I thought you might refer to this. It was Andy doesn't always show his sense of humor, considerable sense of humor that he kind of keeps hidden from us a lot. But he was asked about the altitude the other night and had this line about there wasn't much air up here at the end of the game, but it was good air.
Right,
it was good oxygen.
And we used it all up.
Yeah.
Right.
Good oxygen, that's right, yeah.
All right. Hey, Kyle and Jason, thanks for getting in touch, and that's how we work it here. Get in touch with us through Facebook Live. We'll get to comments and questions as they come in, and we'll try to answer as many and address as many as we can. I want to talk about two players in that game who I think are largely underappreciated. They certainly did some things that were noteworthy in the game, but I think we know Frank Clark had a fantastic game, probably the best game in the Chiefs uniform. The Honey Badger. I thought about you, Vahe, when he got his interception, and
we all did.
7 yards away from making you prophetic on your weekly prophecy come true. But I want to talk first of all about Dan Sorensen, and let's get through him. I got another one I want to mention as well. But listen, Dan Sorensen plays on special teams. He doesn't start. He's only been a starter for 1 year as a Chief. 2017, he started 14 games. He's just been a complimentary guy throughout his Chiefs career, which started in 2014. He makes what turns out to be the game-winning play on the interception in the end zone. If he knocks that pass down, just knocks it down or doesn't control the interception, the Chargers have another shot, right? Because it wasn't fourth down, but he made the pick. So who got to talk to Dan after the game?
Sam McDowell did. And it was interesting. We were standing another place we weren't supposed to be. Was right by the ramp up into their locker room, and we later discovered we were not supposed to be there. But so we were watching the Chiefs come in, and Daniel Sorensen still had the ball from the interception. He was still carrying it. And Sam, I can't remember whether this has made the paper yet or made the our online digital coverage yet, but Sam got talking to Daniel, and I guess he was going to give the ball to his son, who evidently roots against the Chiefs every week. So
That was funny. I heard that.
I hope that's a good tease to the story, unless we've already run it and I missed it.
We haven't, and that is a good tease. Look for Sam McDowell's story on Dan Sorensen coming
One quick
up.
other thing I just want to
Sure.
add is, really very much to your point, I think he's been maligned a little bit, sort of always seen as not quite good enough, a little heavily
that's right.
criticized. And as Herbie got into when he diligently got up and looked at the snap counts the other morning, I think it was 71 snaps.
71 snaps.
This guy played in that. Was that every defensive snap?
No,
Or was
No,
that including-
it wasn't everyone.
yeah, it was
Okay.
like 6, 7 shy of
Okay.
each defensive snap. But yeah, it was a season high 71 snaps.
In the altitude.
Yeah, and then to have it in him to come through at
To
that
make
moment.
that play at the end.
Yeah, I mean,
That was huge. And look, he's had plays. I mean, he had the pick six against Drew Brees. It was the first game you had covered back at Arrowhead Stadium after you went to New Orleans, Herbie. He had a pick six last year against the Raiders. He had the big interception against the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. He had the play. It was right after the fumble that wasn't a fumble on the punt return. Edelman did it hit his finger, and all of Chiefs Kingdom was just furious about that call. Well, the next play was a tipped pass interception made by Sorensen that led to a touchdown. So he's had moments.
Yeah, for sure.
This was another moment, really
Yeah.
nice moment for him, wasn't it?
I think it also had a lot to do with the defensive personnel package that the Chiefs were running. Because they got out of their 4-3 base early. Because a prime example, Reggie Ragland, again, only played 17 snaps because the Chargers like to run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. So the Chiefs spent a lot of time in nickel and dime packages. And at one point, I think they had all 4 safeties on the field. But Sorensen is a guy that, as we all know, that Andy Reid affectionately calls Dirty Dan because he trusts the guy. And he came up big. You're absolutely correct. He came up big when it mattered, the game-sealing interception, and that was huge for him.
Just one other point to add, too. This was coming up big. I mean, we'll eventually go to the games that we're going to remember the season for as, playoff game or what gets you positioned in the playoffs or how they do against the Patriots, right? But this is the bread and butter, kind of the mortar of the season, the little big game that gets you there. Mm-hmm. Imagine if they lost that game. They'd be in second place against the Raiders, depending on what the Raiders do this weekend.
Right.
Going into that December 1st game, they'd have lost 5 of 7. And 4 of those with Patrick Mahomes playing the whole time. That's what that was shaping up to be while Herbie was frantically writing his game story back and forth over and over, getting ready to send at the buzzer.
Can we have a blowout, please? I want a blowout, reckon, like just have it written in the third quarter.
Not going to happen. All right, so the second guy I want to talk about, less conspicuous than a game-winning interception, but I thought had a really good game in the amount of snaps that he had, is Mike Pennell.
Bingo, yes.
Defensive tackle who's been a Chief for a month, and you've written about him because he's a Topeka native, Herbie. He's a difference maker when it comes to the run stuffing, and he takes up space. He's physical. He's athletic. And this guy was inactive against Tennessee the previous week when Derrick Henry rushed for, I think, 1,042 yards. I think
and
I
9
had
touchdowns.
That right.
In the second half.
But did you guys see that as well, Mike Pennell?
Well, and I'm trying to remember this. You guys might remember better, but he had the sack.
Yes.
But he also had a big stop early, and I think it was just a tackle for
First
loss.
quarter, correct.
A little bit of a statement play, like, okay, you're not necessarily coming in here like you've been. And I think it was you. There was a little bit of a, Mike Pennell as that was going on, and then he kept. And I don't remember him being exploited at all. I can't say that definitively, but I thought he had some plays that stuck out, but also never got run over.
For me, my reaction to that play was I remember I took to Twitter and said that was Mike Pennell with a fantastic stop. Why was he inactive again last week?
Right, I remember that. So I know in training camp we talked about there might be times this year when the Chiefs go with their NASCAR front, with Okafor, Agba, Jones, Passanio, Frank Clark, and not run stuffers in the middle. And then and it's not like they've done that this year. If they have, I can't remember them doing it. But they've got to have those big guys in the middle. And that position group with Derek Nottie and Colin Saunders has played pretty. I think they've played pretty well.
And even Joey Ivey, the guy
right.
they activated from the practice squad last week to the active roster because he was also active. But I thought, to your point, the reason why I think that they haven't gotten so much out of a NASCAR package is because opponents have just been running right at them. And Mike Pennell, his addition has been huge. You can't deny that. And then that the sack that he had on Rivers, just to give you an example of this, was just strictly on him from the interior push. The push he got right up in the middle of the gut there was all him, and he's a difference maker.
Yeah.
You know, when you add that in, and to your point about, you know, they've had some major injuries on the line and just a lot of flux, right? And Kendall Fuller's still been out in the defensive backfield. But how different do you feel about this defense right now than you did, well, a week ago in a way, but let's say a month ago? I think this is a little bit of the narrative the Chiefs are spinning, but I think it actually is true. Andy was saying after the game, yeah, we had a little step back last week, but this is sort of part of an ongoing trend. And I'd say for the last 5 games, you can feel like you see something good forming. I mean, we've gotten this far into it and haven't even addressed, you know, that the much maligned defensive backfield had four interceptions and, well, actually only 3 because Derek Nottie had one of them.
Alertly got hit.
But I guess the point is that there's been so much else going on that's just kind of in harmony with the rest. I mean, if you're a Chiefs fan following the sort of soap opera of how the season's developing, I think right now you feel like you see the groundswell for something big still.
You just want consistency, though. You know,
well, and they haven't had yet.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because I made this point the other day is I don't think we've seen a complete game yet out of the Chiefs team where all 3 areas are firing on all cylinders. That the closest we've come is Week 7 against the Broncos. That's the game that Patrick Mahomes was hurt. But it was like that was the only time where we saw everything firing at the same time.
Yeah.
And I thought for me the biggest takeaway from this game was they didn't need Superman to win it. Because the defense stepped up. I mean, Patrick Mahomes had a career low, I think it was 182 yards passing, but he wasn't needed in this game so much as he has been in the past.
Right after Sam Mellinger challenged the Chiefs in his Sunday column to, you know, stop letting Patrick Mahomes down.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, well, Herbie, that's a great segue into what I want to talk about on the index card of knowledge, where I always interested in some numbers, some stats, and NFL rankings. And when you mentioned, Herbie, the Chiefs not having played a complete game in a while, I would say I would go back to the first couple of weeks of the season when they, you know, blasted Jacksonville and Oakland. But if this maybe I've got some numbers here that speak to them not being able to put together a complete game. Chiefs red zone offense this year, they ranked 23rd. Touchdowns in the red zone, 50% of their possessions have ended with touchdowns. That's 23rd in the NFL. In 2018, they were second in the NFL for the season. 70% of their possessions in the red zone resulted in touchdowns. Okay, so that's Patrick Mahomes' first year. In 2017, the last year of Alex Smith, the Chiefs ranked 29th, 45%. So the Chiefs in 2019 are more like the 2017 Chiefs when it comes to red zone touchdown efficiency. And if you remember back in 2017, that was also the year Harrison Butker set the rookie record for field goals. The Chiefs were having to kick field goals in the red zone because they couldn't get the ball. What's going on with the Chiefs in the red zone this year? Before you answer, let me give you a hint of what I think. Chiefs running backs this year are on pace for the second lowest rushing total in 19 years. They're on pace for like 1,500 yards as a team. So is it a Mahomes thing? Is it a Williams-McCoy thing? What's going on with the Chiefs in the red zone? What can explain this?
I think it's more the first point. It's the personnel because you don't have the running backs who are going to get you those tough yards inside the red zone. 2017, you had Kareem Hunt.
Yes,
correct?
That's right.
And Kareem Hunt was a monster that year.
And half of 2018.
And half of 18.
Yeah, half of 18. So this is what's going on there. The running back situation has been all over the map this season. I mean, you don't know who's going to get the most carries in one game. You know, Andy Reid wants to play the hot hand, so to speak. We thought it would be Damian Williams, but then he got hurt. He had suffered a rib injury. LaShawn McCoy suffered what Andy Reid called a head injury on Monday night. So now you're down to Darwin Thompson and Darrell Williams. It's the running backs. You got to have a running game to complement that passing game inside the red zone.
Is this an offensive line issue as well?
They've been hurt there too. I mean, they've had a lot of injuries.
Yeah, think about this. I mean, it's definitely a factor in it. If you look at that, like Eric Fisher has just come back after going out in week 2.
8 games. Yeah.
LDT was out a long time. They remember that sequence, that horrible sequence at Tennessee, where they had one guy in there that started the season at his position at one point, and after like 3 straight plays where the right tackle went down, whichever right tackle it was. So they haven't had that continuity. But what I do wonder about that's interesting, remember, and Blair, you were there, the opener in 2018 at the Cargadores, they had about 3 of those backfield, misdirection, sleight of hand things. And I remember just thinking, they could do that every time and score a touchdown.
Yeah.
I mean, because you'll never, Patrick probably could throw one behind the back. We haven't seen that yet, but that could happen. So it's a combination of all these things, but I think it goes back to sort of your point, and that you amplified, Herbie, that if you don't have that threat, then the running threat, then you're sort of left not one-dimensional, but less dimensional, and they have less to have to account for on defense.
We haven't seen, as to your point, we haven't seen the jet sweepage. That sort of, and Phil Jason wants to know if we need to be worried about Tyreek Hill's hamstring. On that point, what's the latest news on Tyreek Hill's hamstring?
He's considered day-to-day. It's not considered serious, so the bye week came at the perfect time. If it's not a serious injury, then he has the extra time to recover. I wouldn't expect the Chiefs to push him next week. I'd expect them to probably say, well, he'll probably limit him on Wednesday and then just gradually increase it as we get closer to that big game against the Oakland Raiders.
One thing I think was encouraging about this was that it didn't seem like the sort of thing that was borderline blowout, because he spent a good 6, 7, 8 minutes on the field after it.
Right.
Looked like, can you go? Let's work on him. And I think there's a pronounced difference between something that's like, oh, that's a real pull.
Yeah.
As you guys know. So I'm encouraged that he'll have a chance to be back. And you're right, Herbie, that this for those purposes, this bye week comes at a perfect time. And Blair, you looked up this number before the Tennessee game, and it's kind of still holding up. What was the number on plays Patrick and Tyreek have both been on the field at the same time?
Yeah.
It is remarkably low.
It was in the 60s, I think.
And that accounts a little bit for things like red zone and a little less explosiveness. I'd say it's worth 3 to 5 points a game, depending on how you want to do your math.
Okay.
To the one last point on Tyreek Hill, because you mentioned a good point that you're encouraged. Here's the other encouraging thing about that injury. He was on the sideline for the entire game after he came out of the locker room. Most of the time, if it's a serious injury, teams will keep the players in the locker room to receive immediate treatment. They didn't do that with him. So he was able to watch the game from the sidelines. And that should be encouraging that he's not seriously hurt.
I suspect if this was a playoff game, he'd have been on the field, if only a decoy. They would have found a way to get him back on the field.
Stand back for a punt return, if nothing else.
Right, exactly. And we saw what that did with the Vikings. So while let's take a couple more questions, and we'll stay with injured players. This one regards Kendall Fuller. Phil Scoville wants to know, does Kendall Fuller get a top dollar contract from the Chiefs? He's been hurt for how many games now has it been?
Week 7. That's when he had his surgery. Yeah,
and it's the thumb, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him back here pretty soon. But has he shown the Chiefs enough for them to invest in him in a bigger way?
He has not been the playmaker I thought he might be when he came. I remember reading about him and looking at a little bit of what he had done before, and you sort of thought he was gonna flip the field a little bit here and there, right? And if not smothering coverage, also some picks, and we really haven't seen it. Now, sometimes, and I'd leave it to you guys really to elaborate on this point, sometimes a guy just does his job and it's not spectacular, and that's pretty good. I don't know that I can say that about him.
Yeah, I don't know if he's worth a top-end contract, but I think for what he does for the Chiefs, it's good enough for the team. He has the ability to play outside and inside, and slot cornerbacks in the National Football League over the past couple of years have come at a premium because of the amount of 11 personnel packages that teams run, which is why you see even the Chiefs' base defense. At the beginning of the year, when I was in New Orleans, but by the time I got here, I was looking at all the starting lineups, and they always rolled out with 3 cornerbacks, and Kendall Fuller defending against the slot. You can't slot cornerbacks. Good slot cornerbacks don't grow on trees. And so he's going to be certainly worth a consideration, but whether he deserves the top-end dollar remains to be seen.
I remember when the Chiefs got him, he was Pro Football Focus's top rated or top, however they do it, slot corner for the Redskins, his final year there. Jermaine Grigsby asks, why did we renew the contract of the fullback and never use him? The dude is a beast. He is a beast. We're talking about Anthony Sherman. He had a big block on, whose touchdown run was it? Was it McCoy's?
Yeah, it was McCoy.
Yeah. Big block on McCoy's touchdown run. Listen, if you look up Anthony Sherman's stats, he doesn't get more than 4 or 5 rushing attempts a year. You know, he caught the touchdown pass in L.A. Patrick Mahomes' first game or the first game of the 2018 season. He's not a stat guy. He doesn't put up numbers, but he's on all special teams.
Yes.
I think he's a heart and soul kind of player for the Chiefs, and he was a Pro Bowler last year.
Yeah, and I think that's all well said. And his stats aren't going to be catches and runs, right? I mean, his stats are going to be how does he come through in these situations, and I think he knows that. And the reason that play probably worked at the San Diego Chargers of Los Angeles last year
Still love that
was
name.
because it was unexpected. I think. I mean, maybe not. It's not the whole reason, but I think they didn't really figure you have to cover him on the wheel route.
Yeah.
He's someone they use within the scheme. So I know it's like, why aren't we using him? It goes back to Andy Reid's offensive philosophy. But Reid is one of the very few coaches around the National Football League who still utilizes a fullback. Fullbacks are a dying breed. There's no ands and buts about it. But Sherman's value to the team is core special team. And he's a veteran, and he's also a leader in that locker room.
Okay, Cliff Whitegrass wants to know, did the Chiefs bring back Patrick Mahomes too early? It looked like he was limping on the run up the right sideline, favoring the right leg.
One of the things that happened on that play, and we asked Patrick about it afterwards. Actually, Adam Tyser, our friend and colleague, asked him about it. He asked Patrick about getting up, a little bulky, a little limping after that play, and said, did he? I think the question was phrased as, did you tweak your knee a little there? Patrick just kind of laughed and said, no, my knee got hit. And it's the first time his knee's really gotten hit since he got back. And at least to hear Patrick tell it, it was like basically he almost literally walked it off. And I don't remember seeing any sign of that afterward on the field. I mean, I thought he was pretty mobile. So look, I was as worried as anybody that they were bringing him back too soon. I think they knew better, and they did it right. He was stable and ready, and I don't think aggravated anything against Tennessee. And I think he's fine. And again, good time for the bye week, though.
Okay.
59 yards rushing on 5 attempts. And on his first run, I think it was a 19-yard gain. And I was like, wouldn't he be injured?
It was 24. Yeah, 24. Yeah.
Well, he had
perfectly
runs
fine.
of 20, 24, and 15, and all were first down runs.
Yeah.
All were the Chargers in man coverage, had their backs turned to the, and he took advantage of it. And it was the first time since the injury I've seen him move like that.
Sam McDowell had a really interesting point about that, by the way, which speaks to a lot of different things. But with the Tyreek Hill out, Chargers were in more man coverage because you can do that with Tyreek Hill out, and thus, what do you know? Patrick sees more open field because backs are turned. They're downhill, downfield. So really alerted Patrick. And, kind of the other thing that stands out with that is that those 3 runs, 24, 20, 15, were the Chiefs' 3 longest runs of the day. The longest other one was maybe, I think, 8 yards by McCoy.
And one of those runs came with Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram in pursuit. And so when you got those 2 guys chasing after you, I don't see any issues with this.
You're incentivized.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right, so we've reached the point in the show where we talk about where the rubber meets the road, and that's where we identify.
That's my phone.
Herbie's phone has fallen.
That met the road.
The rubber has met the road under Herbie's seat, but I think we'll be okay with the.
Okay, no crack. It's not cracked. We're good.
That's right. So what we usually do here is identify a player that we think will or should need to come up big in the Chiefs' next game. We're going to do another one of these Red Zone Extra Facebook Lives next Tuesday, so we will save our player identification for that particular episode. So I've got a couple of other questions that I wanted to ask you guys on where the rubber meets the road. And the first one is, Phillip Rivers has 14 career victories against the Chiefs. That's the most of any active quarterback. And it makes sense, right? He's been around a long time. It's a division opponent. You see him twice a year. that Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, they have winning records, but they don't have anywhere near as many victories against the Chiefs as Phillip Rivers. He's 14-14 against the Chiefs all time. Should Phillip Rivers retire is the question. From what you saw on the field in Mexico City, is Phillip Rivers at the end of his career?
I don't know. That struck me as a classic Phillip Rivers game, right? He absolutely was dazzling in a lot of phases of the game, and then he does what he does. And it's hard to reconcile the two, actually. I mean, that first drive he threw for 63 yards and just carved the Chiefs up.
Yes.
It did help that Tano was covering a back out of the backfield on one of those. That was
Chasing down Eckler.
Yeah, it was Eckler. Yeah, that helped, but it also was him seeing it and adjusting to it. I don't know that he's that much different today than he was a couple of years ago. It is interesting, though. He's 14-14 now against the Chiefs. So I guess that means there was a time he was 13-3.
Yeah,
that's right.
Because the Chiefs have won 11 in the last 12 now.
Basically the pre-Andy Reid era.
Yeah, which is that's just kind of an interesting side point. But looks to me like the same guy he's been with the penchant for the fatal flaw. But that had he thrown that ball away against Dan Sorensen picked up, I'd like to see the parallel universe what happened in the next play.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think he's ready to retire. And the key thing here is he's still playing at an elite level. It would be different if his skills were deteriorating, kind of like what we saw in, I think that was 2015 with Peyton Manning, when his skills started deteriorating. We haven't seen that yet. He had a bad game against the Raiders, 4 interceptions, but the Chiefs just made some phenomenal plays on those picks. I don't think he's ready to retire yet.
Okay, I disagree with both of you. I do. I think he should step down. I think this should be it for him. They're getting ready to move into a new stadium next year. I just think a fresh start at that position would be a good business move for the Chargers. I think there's a ceiling on his ability to get a team to a Super Bowl. I don't think that can happen with him as the quarterback.
That is an interesting part of this when you lay it out that way, right? Is he ever going to take the Chargers to the Super Bowl?
And if he's not, don't you start over with someone else?
Yeah, but who do they have in place right now? That's the key thing here. It's either you're going to have to draft someone.
Well, you got Tyrod Taylor, who done pretty well against the Chiefs.
Is he going to be your franchise though?
Could he groom the successor? If they draft this year, could he groom the successor?
Alex Smith model.
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer Rivers did that.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you this: is he a Hall of Famer?
Ooh.
I think that's going to be a thing that hits right at the crux of
I do too.
How do the voters deal with that, right? The numbers are astounding in some ways, but where you've taken your team, and again, the interceptions are, I don't know what the ratio of interceptions for him is, but it's 14 this season, and that's always been part of it. Patrick Mahomes has thrown 2.
right.
And the Chiefs overall have thrown 2. That's amazing.
Yeah. The Chiefs won both of the games. I take that back. No, they didn't beat Houston.
Okay, yeah. So in 11 games, they throw 2 interceptions.
I think his stats are worthy of Hall of Fame consideration, and I think if we're going to use interceptions as a reason why to keep him out, Brett Favre made the Hall of Fame, and he's the career leader in interceptions. But he also has a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's going to hurt Rivers the most is the lack of the championship ring.
Right. Okay. All right. Second question for you guys. I'll let you think about this for a second.
Blair's bringing it today.
So as you have no doubt noticed, if you joined us after the start, is we were 3 today and not 5 because Sam and Sam are not part of this group today. They're on assignment. They're out chasing stories for us that you will enjoy reading, I can assure you, knowing what they're chasing. So they're going to be great stories. So I got to thinking about there should be some kind of Sam presence here today. So I got to wondering about famous Sams in sports. Sams, Samuels, Sammys, any kind of derivation, Samantha, any. Who are the most famous Sams in sports historically? I know I'm kind of springing it on you without notice, but off the top of your head, can you think of some famous? Let's go in order.
I got 2.
Okay, well just give me one. Give me
one. Okay. Well, I hate to lean on the very name itself, but the pitcher, sudden Sam McDowell.
How about that? Sam McDowell. I wonder if Sam McDowell knows that his namesake was a 5-time AL strikeout champion of the 60s and 70s.
I've brought it up to Sam, and he seemed to, as he so often does, shrug it off.
What was Sam McDowell's nickname?
Sudden
Sam
Sam
McDowell.
Just like
That's right.
our Sam McDowell on Deadline, man.
That's right. I called him Sudden a few times, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" Come on, Sam. All right, Herbie, who's your Sam?
Oh boy, for one reason or another, I'm drawing a complete blank, but something tells me there was an NBA player named Sam.
Yeah, there've been a few. There've been a few.
And I know he was a guard.
Yeah, there's a guard named Sam.
Cassell? Sam Cassell?
Cassell.
Sam Cassell. Hey, I
Very
found
good.
one. Sam Cassell.
Won an NBA title with the Rockets, I believe.
There we go. Yep.
Very good.
Bald head.
I know
Yep,
who you're going to
remember.
say.
Well, I know a few of them, but I'll just go Sammy Sosa.
Ah, okay. All right. I
so
didn't expect that.
Back to you.
Another one?
Yeah, I need another one.
Sam Bowie.
Sam Bowie.
Oh, you took mine. I
basketball, right?
was going basketball again.
Yes, the player drafted instead of Michael Jordan.
Yes. Yes.
Sam Bowie, the 7-footer from Kentucky who will go down in history as one of the biggest flops of all time. All right, Herbie, you got another one?
Sam Elliott. The actor.
He had a cup of coffee.
Yeah,
Right.
With
I'm sure he's played an athlete at some point in
All
his
right.
life.
All right, I would have given you Sam Bradford, NFL quarterback. Sam Perkins, NBA player, North Carolina basketball player.
I got one other too.
What do you got?
Michael Sam,
Oh, how about that?
the former Missouri linebacker
There we
who
go.
Well
came
done.
out while he was at
Very
Missouri.
nice. You could have gone Sam Huff, the old NFL.
Sam Huff,
NFL Hall
Redskins
of Famer.
quarterback.
Yep.
Yep.
So you can't drop these kinds of things on us on the set here. I'm like, my brain is going crazy.
How about
right
Sam
now.
Lacey, the old Kansas City King? So there are a few of them. So that was our tribute to the Sams who aren't here. We wanted to bring some Sams who are, and we miss you guys. And we'll see Sam, at least one of the Sams, on our next broadcast next week. So a couple of programming notes. As I mentioned, the next Facebook Live, Red Zone Extra, is going to originate next Tuesday morning, Thanksgiving week, Tuesday morning, from Wichita, Kansas. We're going to take the show on the road, and we'll be at a Big O Tires in Wichita, Kansas. Tuesday, it'll be at 11 a.m., new time. Well, these are kind of edging closer to 11 a.m.
Thanks to me.
Based on the arrival time of some of our participants. The other programming note is, if you don't already listen, SportsBeat KC, the podcast, is wherever whatever network you use to download your podcast, go get it, listen to it. There's one on there today that Vahe and I put together yesterday with Michael McCambridge, the author of the 69 Chiefs, a team, a season, and the birth of modern Kansas City. It's a wonderful read about the Super Bowl winning Chiefs and how it came at a time of great change in Kansas City. It was the downtown got a facelift. It was certainly the airport was being planned. The stadiums were about to go up, and just in times of race relations, it was just a fascinating time to be in Kansas City. All that is covered, and the Chiefs' role in that is pretty cool.
It is, and I really recommend it. And it's also very interesting. I guess we need the key parallel to be the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl this year. But everything you just brought up merits another set of scrutiny again, right? Whether it's everything from a new airport coming to race relations in modern Kansas City to all these things. I mean, so hopefully in 20 years we'll be writing that book, 25th reunion of or some such, while we're still at it.
Podcast drops every day. Every day we've got a SportsBeat KC podcast. This will serve as a podcast later in the day, and we'll come at you again on Friday, and then all next week, the Chiefs Raiders week. We'll have a lot to say about that next Tuesday from Wichita. So for the guys, Vahe, Herbie, and the Sams who aren't here, to Beth, to Mike, to everybody who came out and saw us, thank you very much. We will talk to you again on Tuesday.